Here is a very hotly debated topic right now. Birthright citizenship. What places do it, what places don't? The vast majority of places outside of the two American continents have restricted birthright citizenship, so it could depend more on your ancestry or what citizens your parents are a part of. Meanwhile, all the green countries currently have unrestricted birthright citizenship, basically granting citizenship to anyone born on US soil, in this example, regardless of their parents' status, with exceptions like childs of foreign diplomats. Globally, birthright citizenship is common in the Americas, but less so in other regions. This obviously has to do with history and the age of colonization and Europeans making their way over to these continents. They wanted people to move to the new world, and it's a lot easier to just say, okay, if you're born here, you're a citizen. Obviously, this is in the news lately because Trump is attempting to end this, making one more red country that would appear on this map over in the Western Hemisphere. Very curious how Chad and Tanzania works as some of the only two green spots in Africa, or I guess all of this part of the world. Kind of interesting to see this thought process really only brought to the American continents. Even Oceania didn't have it, but you'd think they would, since they too had a close connection to the British Empire. I guess that's because the British Empire used Australia as their prison colony. You can be a citizen all right, you just gotta commit some felonies. Bulgaria also gives citizenship based on birthplace if both parents lack citizenships or if the kid doesn't receive any other citizenship from its parents' countries. Here are some of the reasons why the Dominican Republic and Colombia are both not green. Also, I don't think Mexico allows birthright citizenship. Oh, no. I was thinking if you get married to someone from Mexico, you don't become a Mexican citizen. Obviously, all the red countries had various different restrictions. For example, Germany, one of the parents has to have had a permanent resident permit and resided in Germany for 5 years. In Spain, one of the parents has to be born in Spain. Yeah, I mean, it basically just comes down to history, as so many things do. It's gonna be a very interesting legal battle that takes place to see if the US turns red here. Here's the second controversial map of the week, just a picture of the Gulf of Mexico. I feel so bad for the Europeans that are not deep into American politics right now. I'd be so confused. Imagine them looking at this post just saying a map of the Gulf of Mexico and that getting 41,000 upvotes. Like, what? Why? This is again because Trump would like to rename this geographical region, which is this the first time we've ever seen this in the world? Definitely not. It's using the old China strats I see. But to be fair, it goes way further back than that. Actually, you can go back centuries ago. People arguing what things should be named on the map just so they can have a claim to that territory. That's a tale as old as time. Now, do I think this trend is actually going to work? Probably not. Yeah, probably not. People are probably going to forget this in like a week. Remember, this name, the Gulf of Mexico, was coined over 350 years ago, and it all pretty much dates back to the old Spanish Empire as well. Remember back in the 1700s, in terms of this region of America, well, it was only really Spain that was actually here. It was just a giant Mexico, or at the time, New Spain. The Spanish were also in Florida, the Spanish had Cuba, the Spanish had all the Caribbean Sea. Colonies were just up here in the Northeast. So even though the US might currently have more coastal territory that borders the Gulf of Mexico, well, that doesn't really matter in terms of how this area got its name. That body of water shall henceforth be known as Si, Senora. Hang on, this guy might be onto something. New Orleans, living in America's urethra. Anyone else notice the Rio Grande River? Bit redundant. Always thought that name was kind of funny. Not the English name that we use here, but just the Spanish name, Rio Grande. Literally, they just called that the Big River. And then we decided to call it the Big River River. The top 10 countries with the most tourism. And the US is actually not number 1. I knew that. However, the US is also not number 2. That would be Spain this particular year, just barely beating out the US by about 4 million tourists. Still, France absolutely dominating the world. I cannot believe it. Again, it makes me reflect back on what is known as Paris syndrome, or when people get to that city, their overall extreme disappointment. It's interesting because for France to get the number 1 tourist destination, they've got to be popular all around the world, which they are. They do a successful job of romanticizing their country in Europe, in the USA, in Asia. In fact, most of the people that get this Paris syndrome are Japanese tourists. But it's not just enough to be world renowned and popular in literally every single part of the earth, but it's not that simple. You actually just need to be popular in rich places on earth, where the people there actually have the money to do international tourism. China's in 4th place at 65 million. There is a significant drop, though, out of the top 3. The little old country of Italy is actually very close to having more tourists than all of China. Then it's Turkey at 51 million. Mexico and Thailand here punching way above their weight. I think Thailand is even more impressive, though. I mean, Mexico is very lucky to be next to the USA. There's so many American tourists that travel to Mexico. I'm one of them. But Thailand here is kind of secluded, so they're drawing people from pretty far away to go visit Bangkok or some of the other Thai cities, Phuket. Thailand and Mexico beating out both Germany and the UK, only with 39 million tourists. I guess it's pretty close for Thailand as well. Keep in mind, yes, this is in fact all recent data as of 2024, because obviously tourism changed drastically during the COVID era. But as we can see, France still retained that number 1 spot spot, because I remember back in 2019, they were number 1 as well. Interestingly, comparing this data to back in the day, back in 2017, not a whole lot has changed, except certain places really going up higher on the list, Turkey and Thailand, meanwhile others obviously dropping lower on the ranking. France, Spain, the USA, China, Italy, they've always been in that exact order, but obviously there are more tourists today than there were about 10 years ago. Turkey's growth is actually particularly insane, starting at 37 million, compared now to 51 million. What a hub here this has become. One factor I'm definitely thinking as well is it's kind of a hub for airplanes and stops because of the geographical center it is to the rest of the world. A lot of places, maybe they stop for a couple days though and stay there during the layover. Where would Portugal, Greece, and the Netherlands be on this ranking? Just curious. Greece ranks 13th, Portugal ranks 15th, and the Netherlands ranks 20th. Wow. Dutch a little lower than I expected. Temperate latitude. That's a very good point. A lot of these places are similar. It is a bit easier for the European countries just because, well, the neighboring countries would count, right? Now the top 10 most visited cities in the world. Number 1 is Bangkok, Thailand. Crazy how different this map can be compared to the countrywide version. I'm actually not shocked to see the US not placed in this ranking at all. US is a big place when you visit it. Sometimes you visit LA, sometimes you visit New York. People forget how big the US is. Usually you just visit one. Really shows how Thailand is basically literally just Bangkok, their capital. There are obviously way more other cities in Thailand, but man, the popularity of this single city, it's amazing. I would think London would be number 1. But you know what, to be fair, the UK's got obviously a lot of other popular cities, tourist destinations as well. Actually, no, I'm smoking crack. I would think that Paris would be number 1. France is the top country, yet Paris only gets 17 million visitors. That is absolutely insane to me. That says to me actually that a lot of the European neighbors that just kind of travel by train into Paris, that's where a lot of it comes from. They're not flying in. Oh, that's definitely an aspect of this. If a lot of the tourists are coming from neighboring countries, then it is very unlikely that they're, landing in the airport. We literally just saw like how Thailand is kind of on an island in terms of it having the most tourists. There was no like close by countries that also had most tourists. So everyone's pretty much flying into Thailand, going to Bangkok, staying in Bangkok, not leaving, and then just leaving out of the airport. That's what this says to me. Same thing for Istanbul. Again, goes with my theory about how because, Istanbul is a massive hub for air travel. It's even crazier because Istanbul is not the capital, Ankara. So London is number 3 at 21 million. Then we actually have Hong Kong at 20 million, which is a part of China, or it's like I don't even know what the classification is anymore. Saudi Arabia, Mecca at 19 million, another Turkish city. That's interesting that Turkey's popping up twice. Obviously Dubai at 17 million. Then we have Macau at 18 million. I wonder if there's a difference between the Chinese citizens. Are these just Chinese citizens visiting Hong Kong and Macau? That's pretty much it. Then Malaysia making the list because of Kuala Lumpur. Kind of a similar thing going on here geographically with Thailand. A lot of people visiting these countries really only going to one city. Again, I think a big reason for this is these are cities easily entered with the airport. I know Macau is where many people choose to go for gambling, but I did not think that many people were visiting, or most people from nearby cities. That's kind of what I theorized. London manages to strike a really good balance between being extremely touristy and still feeling like a real place for locals. I would agree with that. Dubai beating Paris is a real crime here. I'm surprised Rome isn't higher. Yeah, me too. I really need to see data laid out like this, showing the most popular city traveled to every single year and see how trends change and how they will look to change in the future going into the 2030s. How to hide an empire, a history of the greater United States. Now this map seems to be a little bit old, only because we no longer control the Philippines. Haven't controlled the Philippines in over 75 years. But at the very same time, they did include the island of Greenland just because of this military base. Maybe it's because we want Greenland? Well, you can include all of Canada if it's just the places that we want. But this is a very good point. The US does do a very good job of sidestepping the US empire question. Do we have an empire in a way? I'd argue yes, over 125 years ago, after the Americans beat the Spanish in the Spanish-American War and grabbed Cuba and the Philippines, and Puerto Rico. This is when the Americans were at their greatest extent. But to be honest, we still control a lot of this stuff. Obviously Alaska, obviously Puerto Rico, obviously Hawaii. It's interesting because we've integrated Hawaii and Alaska into states. I think the whole how to hide an empire works better for, using the Puerto Rico example because, we haven't put them in the Union yet. They're not the 51st state. Also including places like Guam, we have that, and the US Virgin Islands. There's Guantanamo Bay. But I think it's a little bit weird because it's including bases. If you're including bases around the world, you might as well just put multiple countries in. We got military bases in all of Latin America, all over Europe, all over this specific part of Asia. I think actually this map is a bit more effective at, the whole hidden empire thing. If Greenland is here because of one air base, then you might as well add half of Europe and East Asia here. Australia too. Shout out to the Bikini Atoll, LMAO. In what way are they they hiding anything. They are pretty transparent about the fact that Hawaii and Alaska belong to the US. I don't know, is the current hidden empire the US controls in 2025 like the age of empires that we saw just before World War II, the French Empire, the British Empire, the Spanish? I don't think you can compare them. Those are two very different types of empires, the ones that we had in history versus kind of now. Are there some similarities though? Yeah, but let's not pretend like we're the British Empire or anything. That was obviously insane. Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to this. Picturing all of Cuba and all of Greenland as American Empire because they have built one military installation on each island is certainly a choice. Laughs in France's current 14 different time zones. They certainly might also have, quote unquote, a hidden empire. Fantastic book. It discusses the US empire in the non-traditional sense, not like the British or Roman Empire. Okay, that makes sense. But speaking of countries that had an empire that was definitely not hidden, countries which Germans feel are similar to Germany. In the middle, we have Germany, and 70 to 79% of the German people responding that France is similar to Germany. That is interesting, but it is. They do have a very similar origin story, especially when you go back to Charlemagne's empire. Oh, and then there was that time there where Germany did just literally control France. World War II moment, but that's not necessarily what this is saying. The answer has got to be Austria. Countries that Germans feel are most similar to Germany, the answer is clearly Austria. Oh, actually, Austria got the 70 to 79%. France only got 60 to 69. And that was the whole basis of the Anschluss in the first place. That's why the world just let them annex all of Austria. They're just mountain Germans. Isn't that the joke? I would also argue the Swiss are similar to Germany in a way, or at least a part of Switzerland. This part here is Zurich. With the lowlands also making it pretty high on the list. I like how Luxembourg's not even included. I guess there's no data. Belgium does have German-speaking parts, and then the Netherlands, also the meme is that they're the swamp Germans. Germans finding similarities out of the Scandinavian region, specifically Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. Really interesting to see a bordering nation like Poland get actually so low on this list. Only 30 to 39% said it was similar to Germany. Weird, because a lot of that land was controlled by the German Empire not that long ago. Maybe these people were afraid to say that Poland was similar to Germany because it might incite some things again. UK getting very low on the list. In fact, Ireland getting higher than the UK similarity to Germany wise. I mean, the British monarch has German blood. I mean, what else do you want? Holy crap, Germany. Why would you give... How is 20% of your respondents saying that Japan is similar to Germany? Talk about an honorary Aryan moment. Russia might have a lot more similarities to Germany, but clearly the German people did not want to admit that. Less than 10% said Russia. Again, this might not mean like in a cultural sense or anything. This might just be similarities that the two areas, the two ethnicities have. Spain being similar to Germany. I mean, you definitely see like a Mediterranean vibe shift here. Low numbers out of Greece, Italy, Portugal, Spain. Nobody was saying Hungary or Romania, especially not Moldova, but Moldova's a pretty small nation. I kind of wish they had data here on the Balkans. Saying 30% similarity for the USA. I mean, we do have a lot of people here, with German ancestry. I guess I'm shocked that a quarter of Germans don't think that Austria is even fairly similar to Germany. Probably persons of the north part. Germany itself is very divided at north versus south. So these examples also west versus east. Very divided Germany. How is France higher than Switzerland and the Nordics, and how is Ireland so much higher than the UK? As a German, I'd say most Germans underestimate how similar we are to Poland. Also, yeah, Czech too. It's too bad they weren't on the list. It's weird there's no data for Czechia since its location and partly shared history is so has many similarities to Germany. What's going on with these German people? And a big old thanks to my patrons. I stole Drew Durnil's Robux and won't return them until he plays Cartwright into Drew Durnil.
Alexander
Drew's
the
Argentinian Grandpa.
I'm back, boys.
aPhatNarwhal.
I will literally revive the whole
Megan.
if Drew doesn't realize Imperial Japan flag is the same as modern Japan
NordTyrol,
flag, Tambre,
the Mexican 760,
and ZaneyBoi.